Greetings, Yoctograms of YouTube. Got some red hot news for you. I have finished season 1 of The Duke of Death and His Maid. Or, which, and yes, they have announced the second season, but nothing about when it's going to air. Now, I saw some promos, like some pictures of it originally, and I just decided to check it out on a whim. And much like Ratman, the world's smallest hero, just checking this out on a whim turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. I really need to trust my instincts more. Because when I heard the premise, I thought, this seems like it could be a pretty amusing comedy. I was not expecting it to be as heartfelt as it was. And I mean, really heartfelt. It's actually really touching. Now, to give a quick premise, the idea is that there is the Duke. This Duke who, as a very young child, was cursed, seemingly for no reason, by a witch. This witch decreed that any living thing he touches will die. And after a few years, his mother says, "You're banished. You're living in this decrepit old estate we own with nothing but an old butler for company." Eventually, the butler gets a maid involved. And the idea of this curse was that the Duke would never find love and never be loved in return. So he is outright baffled when the maid will not stop flirting with him. Like I said, has a lot of room for comedy. But the writer actually has some pretty good strengths here, too. He knows how to take this premise and actually delve in some heart into it. And a few episodes in, he also establishes the rules for how this curse works. Like, there are rules and limitations to how this curse works. And the Duke has been told also that if he's unable to break the curse, his younger brother's going to be made the heir of the family. And initially I wasn't too crazy about his siblings, but at the very end of this season, I'm going like, wow, I really want to see more of them. But he also makes some friends while he's stuck in the estate. Namely, he befriends a witch and a wizard. With the wizard actually having a very adorable Tengu face. Like, I'm really bad with names. And but hey, the Duke's has never been revealed. And they're rather clever about it. Like, they're showing, he's only referred to with titles, but wow. Yeah, but I think honestly my favorite characters are probably Koph and Zane. Like, I love their dynamic. Heck, actually, I think where this writer shines the most is when he has multiple characters on screen, because he really knows how to handle a dynamic cast, an ensemble cast. Heck, probably my two favorite episodes are Zane's introduction, where basically a bunch of them are ice skating outside the manor, and oddly enough, the Christmas episode, which usually I'm kind of indifferent to. I mean, I'm Jewish, so mostly my Christmas involves Chinese food and movies, which is awesome, but it's not exactly something I usually find relatable to stuff. But they have such a fun party, which is kind of like the Christmas parties my mom's office used to throw. And honestly, it was the first time we really get a taste of what Walter, the Duke's younger brother, is like, both is at his best and simultaneously at his best and worst. And when I say that, I mean that in a good way. Like, he is hilarious. Viola is also pretty amusing in this episode, but both Viola and Walter really get to, despite their limited line, actually no. Now that I think about it, they have limited lines in the last episode of this season, and it shows a different layer to them, and I thought it was great. Now, are there any? There's also just some really funny jokes that have nothing to do with fan service. Speaking of fan service, sometimes it can work, sometimes it doesn't. But here, it's kind of done a little surprisingly kind of tastefully, while also being pretty darn funny. And I think probably my favorite aspect of the show is the cast dynamic, especially like just in Zane's introduction, we have the easily flustered Duke, the very coy Maid Alice, the fiery and headstrong, if not altogether bright Cough, and the very suave Zane. Like, it's just a fantastic dynamic. I would honestly, I I just. But before I get any more into like even more spoilery territory than what I've already listed, though some people may argue I may not have even really spoiled all that much, I do want to address the elephant in the room. The animation itself is bad. It's not the worst I've seen. Far from the worst. Like, dude, I've seen Garzy's Wing and Mars of Destruction back to back in my school's Rift Club, along with a few other badly animated. I've seen other shows whose attempts at CGI, especially for the non-action scenes in those shows, definitely you just have to suspend your disbelief. I mean, but at the same time, I've seen worse CGI than this, and they try. And I'm not saying they're able to have as much fun with the limited animation as like something like really early Astro Boy did. Like one of the things I loved about I haven't watched that much of the original Astro Boy, but what little I've seen, like you can tell they were cutting corners, but they got creative about it and they had an utter blast with it. This either with this second season, either they need to get better at the CGI or switch to an animation style that they're actually comfortable with. Like, that they actually. Because right now, the animation is honestly kind of holding it back. It's not to the point where it's unwatchable. Oh no, far from it. It is still extremely watchable. But you get smoother CGI, it'll be so much better. Like it'll like the show can really shine if you do that. Now, would I say the characters are really all that complex? So far, no. At least not of the main cast. We did get some hints of it though at the very end of this season, like seeing different sides to the Duke and his siblings, which I really appreciated. But that's not really the writer's strength is more in the actual when he has multiple characters together. I think and like that it's his the Duke's world starts off really small and in flashbacks it was even smaller. But as his world grows, as more people enter, the world grows. And we get to see just how full of life it is, to put it one way. Now for some more spoilers, like, seriously, after seeing just what little we've seen of his mother so far, seeing the Duke talk back to her in that last episode was cathartic. Especially considering how it effectively broke his siblings' brains when he did that. Like, there have been times where Viola has genuinely debated moving in with the Duke because of how the mother basically she she basically only acknowledges Viola when she's doing something wrong that doesn't please her. Otherwise, she couldn't care less, it seems. but even their mother was. But seriously, that moment was so cathartic that even the target of his outburst was actually impressed. From I have I have heard that apparently with the mother's like we get a hint of why the mother shut down the way she did, but we haven't. But and I just hope they don't ever try to use it to actually justify her behavior, because that's my concern. Like they're doing a good job so far explaining it while making it clear that what she's doing isn't right at all. Just and if the Duke forgives her, that's one thing, because it's shown that he's a very compassionate guy, so it would fit in character. But I also wouldn't put it past him to not forgive her. I definitely don't. If Walter ever actually manages to break out of this, I doubt he's ever gonna forgive his mother for what she's done. And I can't see Viola, and I think Viola just will just try to move past it for with and not even really address the idea of forgiving her. Just move past it. But I want to see more of these characters bounce off one another. I want to see more of their interactions because it's adorable, it's hilarious, and it's just so heartwarming. I do have a few other comments that I want to discuss. For one thing, sorry, I wrote some notes down a while back. Okay. But seriously, the one of the things I have talked a bit about so far, but the maid Alice, she isn't just flirting for the Duke for some weird amusement of hers. No, she is teasing him, but the love they both have from each other is clear right from the start is genuine. Yes, he's flustered because in his eyes she's putting herself at risk for a joke. Like, but at the same time, she's clearly been a great influence on him, helping him break out of his shell. Like, the two are a good match, and they truly care for each other. I just, it's a very, to the point where, like, yes, on the one hand, you are rooting for the Duke to break his curse, but it's gotten to a point where you realize, while he's getting closer and closer to getting answers, slowly but surely, and kind of sucks his mother put a time limit on. But I'm kind of hoping that he'll try to come to break the curse less to become heir to the family, and just more so he can actually be with Alice, but, well, physically be with Alice, to actually touch her. But at the same time, they have a great dynamic going, and you realize, even if he never breaks the curse, they're going to be happy together. That's not going to change. Whether the curse is broken, whether he keeps his title or not, these two are going to stay together. And that is real. Like, you're rooting for him to break the curse. You're rooting for the two of them to actually to get. You're rooting for the two of them to get married, to get approval to get married. But at the same time, you don't need to root for them to stay together, because you realize that's not going to change. One way or another, these two are going to live together. Whether or not they can touch each other, stay together, like whether or not they can be officially married, or any of that, or whether or not he ever breaks his curse, they're staying together. Like, I know, like, a lot of people make this joke about, like, when it comes to marriages and divorces, like, one of the things you're taking your vows you say through sickness and health. Yeah, they're taking that vow before they've even gotten officially married, and that is awesome. Now, I generally stick with dubs because with my auditory processing issues, if I find that the subtitles and what I'm hearing clash, it drives my brain nuts. I know some people who also have auditory difficulties generally stick to the opposite. They stick with subs because they have a hard time parsing out what people are saying. for me, the clash between what the subtitles say and what the audio says, especially when there's English or even outright English that contrasts with what the subtitles say. Like, it's one of the reasons that, like, when I'm playing Fate Grand Order and I go into my room and I hear some, when these characters actually use English words, yet the description for what they're supposedly saying doesn't include that word at all, I'm calling nonsense on that. And the guy who plays the Duke, I was genuinely shocked to realize it's the same guy who plays Bakugo in My Hero Academia and Connie Springer in Attack on Titan. Because dude's got range. That being said, the one time they actually let him sing in English, I'm going like, I get you were trying to play more into the Duke's dorky side, but now I kind of just want to see him sing out of character like Matt Mercer or Troy Baker. Or heck, Greg Aries. Or Justin Cook, because I think he has a like, hold on, let me look up the Duke's. Like, I'm blanking on his name. What's the Duke's voice actor in English? Clifford Chapin. I think he could. I think he actually. I would love to actually just hear him sing out of character, because he's actually a. I think if they didn't try to emphasize the more dorky aspects of him, I think he is actually a really good singer. And there are points where it's implied Alice is singing too, and I think her voice actress. Hold on. Another thing I am blanking on, not because I. Kristen McGuire. I think she also has the potential to be a good singer too, and music does play a role in these characters. In that, the Duke has realized that if he loses his status, he's gonna have to do something to provide. So he's learning to write music. That's actually pretty smart. Not putting all your eggs in one basket, being prepared for whatever the future holds. Like, it's smart, showing that he's taken this seriously. All the aspects of his curse seriously, breaking it, and the consequences of not being able to do so. That's as someone who has started to think about trying to say, really, someone who really has a hard time thinking about money. I kind of admire him for that, to be honest. But they only let him sing in English once. Every other time they do the whole the world God only knows thing and have them speaking in English, but whenever there's music involved, jumping to Japanese and going like, you don't need to do that. Not only does Beck Mongolian Chop Squad prove that you can have people singing in English in an anime dub, but it doesn't even have to be one that's purely focused on music. Like, I'm forgetting her name, but the the actress who plays Sakura Haruno, she plays a pop idol in Zatch Bell, Megumi, and she's also a good singer. Like, come on, like, go 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 all the way. Like, I don't know why people are afraid to do this. Some of these shows have proven that you can actually do that without clashing. Like, if you're gonna have like, especially since there's really nothing about this setting that screams Japanese. Not a bit. At least not to me. Not the character models, not the art design, certainly not the setting. There's really nothing about this that screams like this is a like there's like you have to include some Japanese in there. Like, I'm glad that, like, I'm very impressed that, like, I don't mean this as a knock on it. I'm just saying, like, one of the like, just earlier today I saw the first episode of Spy X Family, and while I do love it, it's supposed to be taking place in a German setting, and I'm going like, I'd buy the English in the newspaper a little, in the newspaper and the books a little more than the occasional Japanese script I've seen. I'm going like, that doesn't match the setting. if it's set in something like feudal Japan or something like Naruto where ninjas play a huge emphasis, like then yeah, Asian letters, Japanese letters, katakana, hiragana, like stuff like or kanji, that makes sense. Sorry, I know it's a weird thing to rant about. It's just it becomes a little harder to suspend your disbelief when you decide to flop back and forth randomly like that. To me, look, this is why I generally stick with dubs because, like I said, subtitles alone not matching the English in the audio. Like, it's also one of the reasons I have a hard time. Look, I've gotten better at blocking out like when it's pure Japanese, not a single like of English in the audio to the subtitles. But this is why I can't watch JoJo subbed, at least not officially, because no, they're clearly listing the band names in the audio, and it doesn't match the subtitles. At least with the dub, I can suspend my disbelief pretty easily. But yeah, rant aside and CGI aside, I'm really glad I listened to my whims and checked this show out. And I highly recommend you guys do the same. Yes, CGI is a little flawed. Okay, very flawed. But honestly, between Rift Club and some stuff I've seen in my earlier days, yeah, I, I've got different. I've got standards for what qualifies as unwatchable or just plain, or at least watchable, but really, really bad. Like I've seen much worse, but it's heartwarming. It's funny, and the author really knows how to nail character design, like an ensemble cast. So yeah, if you're into that sort of thing, I highly recommend you check it out. And with that, I bid you adieu. Goodbye. Until next time.